When you think of the Grand Canyon, you probably picture this vast, beautiful natural wonder, right? A huge scar on the face of the planet. But what if that's just the surface? What if, beneath all the tourist spots and hiking trails, there are stories of sealed tunnels, erased histories, and secrets the canyon is determined to keep? And that line right there, wow, it just perfectly captures this sense of mystery. It paints the canyon not just as a static place, but as this active force, a place that literally consumes and hides things. It's a pretty chilling thought, isn't it? So that's the big question we're diving into. We're going to peel back the layers of those official reports and tourist maps and really dig into a series of strange, totally unexplained events that all seem to suggest something else is going on deep down in the rock. Okay, so let's kick things off with what is probably the most famous story of them all. This is a tale that starts with a mind-blowing newspaper headline way back in 1909 and ends with more than 100 years of straight-up official denial. And look, this article wasn't some vague rumor. It was incredibly detailed. It talked about a huge underground city filled with statues, copper weapons, even hieroglyphs. It even went so far as to name the Smithsonian Institution as the backer of the whole expedition. It sounded like the discovery of a lifetime. But then, nothing. Decades of complete silence. Until the Smithsonian finally issued this statement. And this just perfectly lays out the mystery, right? On one side, you have this incredibly specific front-page story, and on the other, you have a flat-out, nope, never happened. How can two stories about the exact same thing be so completely opposite? Now, the story could have just died there, dismissed as some old newspaper hoax, except for all these clues that just won't go away. Hikers had found old iron climbing rings bolted into the rock right where the cave was supposed to be. People who live there and even drone footage point to a sealed, man-made looking entrance. And maybe the wildest part, Hopi legends have told stories for centuries about an underground city. It's not just one thing, you see, it's a pattern. Okay, so from a story about hidden history, we're going to jump to a mystery that seems to break the laws of physics. Let's go to 1924, to a whole different part of the canyon, to a place where sound, well, it just vanishes. 6 seconds. Just count that out in your head. 1, 2, 3. It's a long time for something to be falling. So these miners break into a new shaft, and the foreman, trying to figure out how deep it is, drops a lantern in. It falls for 6 whole seconds, and then nothing. No crash, no splash, just dead, unnerving silence. So they send a guy, Arthur Meeks, down to check it out. They pull him back up, and he's screaming. His eardrums are totally ruptured, and the only thing he can say is, "It's humming down there." Doctors later confirmed his injuries were from intense low-frequency vibration. So get this, it wasn't silent at all. Something down there was making a sound so powerful you couldn't hear it. You could only feel it. All right, let's fast forward again, this time to 1991. The tech is way more advanced, the people involved are scientists, but the mystery, it just gets deeper. Because this time, it's not just an object or a sound that goes missing. It's an entire team from the U.S. Geological Survey. This was their very last message. It sounds completely normal, right? No hint of any trouble, no distress call, just a team doing its job, mapping a remote part of the canyon. And then they just blinked out of existence. When the rescuers found their camp, it was spotless, like they just vanished into thin air. No signs of a struggle, nothing. But they did find some bizarre clues. This weird semicircle of holes pressed into the dirt, and this absolutely chilling final journal entry, impossible symmetry. Turns out their own radar data was showing a perfect, repeating hexagonal pattern deep under the rock, something that just shouldn't exist in nature. And then there's this. After analysts painstakingly cleaned up the radio static from the search, they found something buried in the noise, a faint Morse code signal, repeating one word, over and over, 7 times. Under. Was it a message from the team? Or was it a warning? And all of this brings us to today, where the secrecy isn't about ignoring old articles or burying reports anymore. No. Now it's about literally digitally erasing a chunk of the Grand Canyon off the map. It's got a name, R4803. If you look for it on commercial satellite maps, it's just gone. A 2-mile blank spot where the data just stops. And surprise, surprise, it's also restricted airspace. So you have to wonder, what is so important that it has to be hidden behind a digital wall? The official line from the government: geological instability. It's the standard, super vague reason, right? It's the perfect catch-all for saying stay away without actually telling you anything. Yeah, but try telling that to the hikers and pilots who've actually been there. They talk about being confronted by armed guards in totally unmarked uniforms and seeing these strange lights glowing from inside the cliff faces at night. That sounds a little less like a natural hazard and a lot more like a very active, very guarded operation. And that brings us to our last and maybe the most terrifying piece of this whole puzzle. Back in 2019, a couple of cavers managed to get near one of these forbidden zones. They had recording gear with them, and they actually captured their final moments. The recording starts out pretty normal, but then the whole mood changes. You hear one of them whisper this: "Deep underground, the rock itself is warm." That's the first sign that something is very, very wrong. Then, the mics pick up this heavy, scraping sound, and it's not like a rock fall. The description is, it sounds deliberate, like a massive stone door is being moved. And there it is, the hum, the exact same sound the miner reported in 1924, the same thing that showed up on the radios in 1991, a low, powerful hum that starts to build and vibrate through everything. It's the one constant, the one thread that ties all of these stories together. The hum just keeps getting louder until it blows out the recording equipment. The audio just cuts. And the scariest part, when rescue teams finally found the location weeks later, the entrance the cavers had used was just gone, sealed up by a smooth wall of new rock, like it was never even there. So when you put it all together, you see, these aren't just a bunch of random ghost stories. It's a clear pattern of discovery, then secrecy, then disappearance that stretches over 100 years. A hidden city, a sound that can physically harm you, a missing scientific team, a part of the map that's just deleted, and a final horrifying recording. They all point to something being protected or contained deep inside the Grand Canyon. And that kind of leaves us with this final thought. We always assume that silence means emptiness. But what if, in the Grand Canyon, the silence isn't an absence of sound? What if it's the sound of something holding its breath, waiting? The question isn't just what's hiding down there in the dark, but what happens if it ever decides to answer back?